with your significant other, your spouse or your significant other, or with your best friend. If you had to quarantine, who would you rather be quarantined with? Interesting results coming up here on this one. Very interesting results. You might
Let
not
me go
like
with Jimmy
the answer
Lakey.
what the women folks said. The women folks, we'll talk about it. Stand by. All right, filmmaker, author, written a book, made a movie, and commentator. It's Steve Laffey, SteveLaffey.com, a few minutes together. By the way, if you want to jump in on the program, 888-5449, 866-888-5449. Be in your bonnet, the burr in your saddle. Feel free to jump into the program. I'll give you a call. This segment, I'll get the calls, 866-888-5449. Steve Laffey, good morning, sir.
Jimmy, good morning. How are we today?
Good. You hear the news? Stevie Steve says if you're watching the Super Bowl, don't cheer. Buy yourself a noisemaker.
I haven't watched a football game in 3 or 4, 5, 6 years. These people who run football, who run the teams, the people kneeling, if Bart Starr shows back up again with Roger Staubach in the Super Bowl, let me know.
I'll call you if that happens. That will be very interesting. I'll be sure I'll call you up. We'll watch it together. Steve Laffey is my guest. Steve, you sent me a message last night that said the Laffey plan is better. And it basically, the GOP, the Republicans, and Joe Biden are in Washington fighting over the next COVID relief bill. And give you an example, they're planning to spend, they want to spend $160 billion towards fighting COVID-19 and testing. They want to give out stimulus checks somewhere with $100 to $500. The list goes on. And you texted me with the information that said the Laffey plan is better. So let's talk about the plan being proposed.
Well, it begs, if you had a pendulum going back and forth, something like you watch someone playing the piano as a kid, it just never goes back to the right. The Republicans have a chance to try to go back to the right by opposing all of this. And the backdrop is simply this. Unemployment is now trending less than 7%. Even the CBO projects a 4.6% GDP growth this year. Can anybody name a time where checks were sent out to people with those kind of numbers? Never. So it's pretty obvious that the Republicans should be totally against this. So when you look at the plan that's coming up, over and over again, no matter what they want to do, the Republicans, at least some Republicans, want to join. Just give you an example: stimulus checks. Mr. Biden wants to send $1,400 a person. I guess the Republicans want to make it a little bit less. They call for $1,000 checks to many Americans with 500 available children. Why is the plan not zero? I mean, Jimmy, this is unbelievable. The dollar has gotten 13% weaker despite a recent rally. How about the schools? The Republican proposal provides $20 billion. The Biden wants to send $170 billion. Why is the Republican plan not zero? I mean, we could go through every one of these. By the way, the minimum wage. There's one thing we all know, that the states can set the minimum wage if they want to. I would set it at zero. But the Republican don't want to change the minimum wage, certainly at $7.25 an hour. And Biden wants to put it to $15 an hour. That's the minimum wage, which destroys, young black kids in the inner cities, people getting out of prison. But the Republicans won't vote for this one. But where are they on the offensive? Where is my party on the offensive, like I am here with you? Unemployment aid. The Republicans propose extending a $300 weekly federal employment, and Biden wants it to be $400. We know for a fact, basic economics, that people aren't going back to work when they can make as much money unemployed. We know this without calling an economist at Stanford or University of Chicago. So the list of this stuff should be zero, but there's a list that adds up to another $1 trillion plus. It has to be stopped, but the Republican Party in Washington is not stopping it. They're focusing in on, I guess, Liz Cheney and other things that seem to be just people. We need to get back to issues if we want to take back the House and the Senate, because people who see this happening, who are Republicans, they ain't going to vote for the people who come up with this stuff. They're not going to do it, Jimmy.
speaking of getting back to issues rather than people, even Mitch McConnell, who should be out there, he's a leader of the Senate, should be out there parroting or messaging or heralding the plan of the Republicans. He was taking time yesterday to call a Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. He called her a cancer on the Republican Party. It's like, first of all, Mitch, you probably have other things to do than to worry with a lowly member of the House of Representatives. And second of all, Mitch, we probably should know what your plan is. We know that you're not supposedly going along with the Chuck Schumer plan. But to this day, it's a messaging problem perhaps, or maybe it's not. Maybe they don't have a plan. I don't know what their alternative plan is. They haven't conveyed that, but they have conveyed that Liz Cheney's a jackwagon and that Mitch McConnell doesn't like this other representative, Marjorie Taylor.
Yeah, so these are things that the Republicans can't do if they want to win. You and I have talked about this many, many times. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump lost. He ticked off people that he didn't have to. That's the number one rule in politics running for office. Don't tick off people when you don't have to. When you have to, you do it, right? So if you're going to tick off the public unions to run for governor of Colorado, go ahead and do it. You have to in order to win, because people now know the school systems are broken, right? So another, like a winning message for the nation would be at least to have a law in every state. If I was running for governor, it would be about separating the tax bills between school bills and the other bill. You get two different bills. And when people could ever see what they spend on schools and have a little thing that says per person, this is what we're spending. And then they say, hey, my friend Joe was homeschooling at $3,000. I got 3 kids, but we're paying what? 15 grand a kid to get these results, right? And the results where we don't even test the kids and no one wants to test them because the test scores are so bad, kids aren't in school, we can't get teachers to go back to school across the nation, then people would figure it out, that the whole bill is mass. So there are very simple, I just gave you another simple issue that Republicans would win on. Instead, we're talking about Representative Greene or Representative Cheney, and not like, hey, you know what? Why don't you just say the economy is doing well and we're not doing this anymore? And then why not just give up? We're Republicans on the simple numbers, Jimmy. By the way, I think people are mesmerized by TV. You know, TV, I sent you another article. Everyone's bad, right? Virus has another strain. Oh my gosh. People aren't being tested the way they should. Oh my gosh. A 70-year-old can't find a way to get tested somewhere in Colorado. Oh my gosh. But the basic numbers, Jimmy, are so obvious. 25 million people have been tested. 1.3 million people are getting tested, got the vaccine. 26 million people have the thing. Probably 50 million people had the virus. There's 40 million people who are under the age of 18. There's 311 million Americans. There's a new test from Johnson & Johnson. It's going to be kept at room temperature. By the time we get through the June 1st, if we haven't tested everybody who wants to be tested twice, by these numbers I'm just giving you, random numbers, how it increases, just basic statistics. If anything is shut down on June 1st in the United States of America, then we know we're in like a Dr. Zhivago movie and the Russians, the Red Army is taken over, right? And people are moving into my house to take over rooms. Because that can't happen, Jimmy. But that's what people think is actually happening. The numbers are so unbelievable. By the way, Trump's plan worked to get this stuff going quickly. That thing did work. He should have been touting it every day. But this has to be over by June 1st, over for good by June 1st, or the country is in such a bad direction that we probably have lost it.
The voice of Steve Laffey, SteveLaffey.com, Laffey. Steve, let me come back here and talk about losing the country. There's a lot of folks that feel like they've lost their state in Colorado. They feel like they lost their country. And for instance, there's a real move afoot. Even the governor of Wyoming, Governor Mark Gordon, is touting and teasing and saying, hey, if you folks in Weld County want to come up and see us and join our state, we would love to have Weld County added into Wyoming. People kind of joke about it and laugh about it, but it's a real issue. There is a move, not just in Colorado, but in many states, in many areas, to separate ourselves from what's happening in our states or in our countries. Give me your thoughts. Governor Polis says he loves the people of Colorado. He loves the people of Weld County. And yet every day he seems like he's got an abusive spouse slapping Weld County around. Give me your thoughts.
That's a great analogy. Governor Polis hates Weld County. And the people in Denver who are going to those meetings for state reps, who are Democrats, they hate Weld County. They hate everybody outside Denver. First of all, I don't know how this happens. And if I were the governor of Wyoming, I would say there's no way. I would actually say there's no way I'm taking Weld County. I don't want any more people who might live and think the way they do down there. I don't want them anywhere near me. But be that as it may, think about just any issue that affects Weld County or rural Colorado, right? Take the wolves. Just take the wolves. If Governor Polis loved rural Colorado and they're going to reintroduce the wolves, why doesn't he reintroduce them in Denver? That's where they voted that they wanted the wolves. They want them in Denver. It could be like a scene out of a movie with packs running around Denver, going to trash cans. But the people who live on the border of Wyoming, they don't want the wolves, yet that's where they're going. So if he wants to show his love, just take one issue, oil and gas. We want you to drill everywhere you can. Then people in Weld County be like, oh, okay, we can disagree on some things. How about bringing back, for example, that you can buy 30 clips in a magazine, right? Go to the store today. We're bringing back Magpul, who went to Wyoming, right? There are a number of issues that Governor Polis could say show that he loved the rural part. But while he has the votes, and the Republican Party is in a really bad situation in Colorado, while he still has the votes, he'll just talk, but he hates them. The wolves will be the greatest issue. He wants them in the governor's mansion. We'll start with 3 wolves in the governor's mansion, and we'll spread out from there. That's my take.
I love the idea because you're right. He's now saying we're going to expedite the reintroduction of the wolves, and he's doing it for various reasons we can get into later on in the show. But that would be a way to show your love for rural Colorado. And Weld County is kind of the poster child of rural Colorado. And I picture Weld County, Steve, to be kind of the neighbor across the street or right next door to you. You don't mind if they're behaving badly, having barbecues and doing stuff. You just don't want them to live next to you. And unfortunately, Jared Polis has us living right next to him. If we were in Yuma County or Mesa County, okay, they're way out there. I don't have to see them every day. But Weld County is too close to the Denver-Boulder corridor to make Jared Polis feel happy at all. He's very upset that we're in the corridor.
Why doesn't he just call a giant press conference with ranchers in Weld County? And go meet over there in Weld County and get some of the developers over there to host it. I've been to meetings over there, big giant buildings, and bring them all in, advertise it, answer any question they want. I mean, he might not get out of that place. He couldn't answer the questions, and let it be carried live across the state. Let it be carried live, and citizens of Weld County show up with cowboy hats, packing guns, and ask him very direct questions about oil and gas, wolves, and not so much in Weld County, obviously, wolves, but I mean, ask him direct questions. I'll come. I'll have some questions for him. He wouldn't be able to answer any of the questions. He'd be an embarrassment. People be doubled over laughing by the time he left.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't think Jared Polis even knows how to drive his car up to Fort Collins, let alone all the way into the bowels of Weld County. Steve Laffey, boom, our time is all gone here. SteveLaffey.com.
God bless you, my friend. Bye-bye. Anyway, great. I forgot I was on the air. Yeah, it is amazing that over, not just here in Colorado, sort of everywhere. You take where I'm from in Rhode Island. I mean, it's a smaller state, but you got a swath of people going from, Burrillville around the corner down in Hopkins and so forth, who would totally disassociate themselves from the people of Providence. And unfortunately, that state, is run over by way too many people who like it the way it is. In other words, the real danger to the country is that it may be that more than half of the people like this. They like the mask. They like someone telling them what to do, right? They like, I'll give you one example. Since I homeschool and we did this thing through Veritas and picked up on it, the difference, so everybody just knows about the growth in public schools and people, saying that they can't do it, they won't do it, his parents doing it, and then people tell them they shouldn't be allowed to do it. I ran into one teacher in the whole time we did this online, myself doing it, the last 5 years since Sarah had cancer. And so here's what happens at Cranston East Public School where I went to. You're the parent, it's a terrible teacher, and there are a lot of terrible teachers now in the Cranston Public School system. Some are still really good ones versus when I went. And what happens is your chemistry teacher is so terrible that you've got to get him out of the class. the meetings. You actually go visit the mayor, like some people did with me, not about specifically chemistry class. You actually go visit the mayor, and he tries to help, right? But he doesn't run the school system. And you're just sitting there for month after month with your kid or kid not learning something, being made fun of, whatever might be happening in the class. Let me tell you what happens when you homeschool through Veritas or this thing that's online, or myself. Terrible teacher calls me on the phone. I know something's wrong because I'm staring over the kids and doing this stuff online. Something's wrong with this lady. And she calls me and she says things that are sort of like, that can't be true about, because my daughter didn't that well on a test. She couldn't have possibly cheated. I was sitting right next to her, but she kind of intones to something on Google. And I say, well, she got that question wrong. What do you mean she got it from Google? Well, I did a little. So what do? I think about it. I call the lady who runs the diploma program. I get half my money back. I am out of the class. I go online, dive into chemistry, done. Maybe, I don't know, 12 minutes of action of taking stuff. They finish chemistry, they get a good grade, they did it a different way. That's the choice that parents need. That's the choice that doesn't really happen. It happens somewhat here in Colorado, a little bit, because you have lots of school choice. You have lots of charter schools, but not in Chicago, And so if you look at what's really dragging down the country, it's parents, now someone younger than me, coming to me and saying, I don't understand why little Johnny is so liberal or so crazy or what. Well, you left him with the public schools, and you didn't leave him with Paul Zissison and Mr. Roski and, Dave Andrew. You didn't leave him with really great people who were ardently pretty much conservative, who loved their Lord, if they were Jewish or Christian or whatever. You didn't leave them with those people. You're now leaving them with people who help the Sandinistas, right? You leave them with the mayor of New York City who's a communist. So that's what's happened to America, and that's what needs to stop if you want to fix America. Anyway, I'm ending the live video. God bless.